Dear viewer, you might say that that is some semi-embarrassing Jim Morrison type shit, and you're allowed to say it, but do not jump to conclusions hastily and think that that is a pointless moment, because I shall I shall explain right now. Um, there's a psychology test that may be used basically like during conscription, say, or a job interview or whatever. It's just designed to um, display or to sort of snuff out a personality. I'm sorry, I'll close the windows just quickly. And anyway, what the test is designed to do is that it asks a very simple question. Which would you rather show to the world or show to strangers? Your body or your soul? So the idea of the test is that it's on the it's how should I put it? It's kind of more sneaky than what might first appear, because it asks you to pick your comfort zone, but by picking your comfort zone, you display what your discomfort zone is. So the people who like very quickly say that, well, I wouldn't mind showing my body to strangers or something, like to be publicly naked or something. The idea is that if you quickly go to that, there's the very real possibility that where your insecurities lie is in displaying your true self, like people sort of peering into your soul and then I don't know, passing judgment on your personality. So anyway, I honestly don't know which I find of greater discomfort. Strangers looking at one's body or strangers looking at one's character. But because, I had something like what they call the social anxiety syndrome when I was a teenager. It was it was very rough in those days. I've mostly been able to shake it off. I still have a certain jitteriness. It's social anxiety. It's like stage fright for life. You know. Um, it's just some people who are oversensitive. They just feel like an actor on stage who feels like they're bombing. You know. Um, that like you feel like you're falling and that you feel like there's no safety net. All right. So anyway, that's social anxiety. But anyway, like for people with social anxiety, they feel equally at discomfort whether you're looking at their body or their personality. So it's like people with SA, they're used to being in discomfort. That is the comfort zone, is to run to like the secret citadels of their mind or soul and leave the world behind. And, yeah, I thrive best hermit style with a beard and a pipe. But no, I can't do this alone anymore. As Björk might put it. Anyway, it's just, you can ask yourself that question. Which would you rather show to the world in a video? Your body or your soul? I think I would still rather display my soul, actually. I mean, if you look at the past videos, they are extremely raw as far as the kind of, um, there's two big classics in, well, let's call it Western literature, because Saint Augustine isn't exactly European, or it's more global than that. But anyway, the Confessions of Saint Augustine, to a slightly lesser extent, like Secretum by Petrarch, and then to a bigger extent, the Confessions of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Those are extremely naked in tone, of people sort of enumerating their failings, like lashing themselves, um, uh, for failing to reach their ideals. Um, I mean, the first of those were like devout Christians who maybe did it out of religious reasons. Then Jean-Jacques Rousseau is this really strange character. Um, it, yeah, you know, bewilderingly enough, like Rousseau is probably like he's completely discredited in this era, but he's actually probably the most influential philosopher since Plato. Like people don't know to what extent Rousseau is the person who sort of made the modern world. Like the kind of stiff upper lip society that existed in the 18th century, Rousseau completely, like if Karl Marx complained that philosophers, they only um, scribble their histories, they don't try to change history, they don't try to change the world. Rousseau changed the world, but yeah, just people do sort of hate on him for many reasons. I won't defend him or accuse him of anything, but just saying that his confessions, it's very much, well, like I think you could see a sea change in literature that happened happened after his endeavors. Like it's just it might sound like an extravagant thing to say, but his all those Nouvelle Eloise type books, those were gigantic bestsellers in their day. uh, it's the past is a strange place, and yeah, that was part of it. But like, if I get back to the main point, um, Rousseau was a person. Well, like I'm sure he wouldn't. Yeah, he, he may have had a bit of the exhibitionist about him. I'm sure he would have been perfectly fine, like running naked through through Paris, and he certainly as if ran naked through his books. And Confessions is like that, and then it's some people complain that he sort of he meant to keep it real, but he turned it too flamboyant. Like I've had lots of people say that he made himself sound worse than he really was. Like he sort of made out of his way to make his sins look really scarlet, and just really wallow in the melodrama of his life. Um, I mean, I think it's mostly just I don't know. I think it's the wrong conversation. You know, um, the point is that he had the desire to show his soul, to not hide anything. Um, and it's just um, people watching this, they should ask themselves that question: which would you rather show to strangers? The things that on a really fragile, deeply personal level make up who you are. You can't hide behind anything. You can't hide behind reasons. Like when push comes to shove, let's say that, you know, you are a clingy person. Um, that you can defend it, you can't rationalize it. Sometimes personality just boils down to a simple thing, that you are a clingy person. There's nothing you can say that will alter the fact that a clingy person is a clingy person. So like lots of people who are like fragile over some things that make up their personality, they're sort of drowning in their own subterfuges. Like they're trying to hide the truth from themselves first, and then they're trying to hide it from others, and they're sort of, because they are so fragile about even facing their own soul, inside their own soul, they like put some sort of a circus around themselves so they could hide from the fact that there's a reason why they are clingy. And it's let's say, for the sake of argument, that it's like the most essential part of their self in relation to others. That let's say the relation to the big group of others known as humanity is sort of fraught, and then they need a significant other to make up for the fraud relation with the main core. And then when they can find someone who sort of matches their ambitional second self, then when they can latch onto that, then they get clingy, and they want to do all in their power to not have to face that fact. It's there are things like this that, when you really get down to it, that is what makes humanity what they are on an individual level. And lots of people really, really don't wish to face that. They don't want to look at themselves like that, and they feel uncomfortable looking at others like that. They're more comfortable with that kind of play acting, where it's artificially constructed personas interacting with other artificially constructed personas, and you know you can just hide inside some idea like, merrily, 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 life is but a dream, and then not have to worry about something. That is, those people would rather display their body because their discomfort zone is showing their soul. So anyway, I don't try to put myself up as somehow like a better person for daring to both show my body and show my soul, because as with that Jean-Jacques Rousseau example which I brought up, it wasn't exactly virtuous of him to show both his body and soul. it wasn't or I mean, like the word virtue, it has its root in the Latin word uh, from which like a word like virility also comes. So I think the word was vir or something, and it just meant strength. So a virtue is supposed to be a strength. Like in Christian virtue ethic, chastity is a strength, or chastity is a virtue because it requires strength to be chaste. Like you have temptation around you, and if you give in to the temptation is stronger than you. So the only way to have virtue is to be stronger than the temptation. So that's why chastity is a virtue. Which is, I mean, lots of people don't seem to understand the causality behind it. They think that um, it's people of a certain emotional bias sort of complimenting themselves for finding it easy to not, you know, uh, for not go where all the others go. But I mean, I think there's I think it's right to call chastity a virtue from the causal standpoint that I just named. And anyway, like you could see it as a virtue in the Rousseau sense, is that if he felt uncomfortable doing it, like to a certain extent, he was taking a wrecking ball to his reputation. Like he just looked like yeah, I mean, you either know the Rousseau story or you don't, but like, he doesn't exactly look heroic because of his confessions, so maybe it required a certain strength of character to do it, and from that standpoint, it could be seen as virtuous. But uh, I would say that uh, it probably came relatively easily for him. Like he didn't have to fly against headwind. He had the wind on his back because all his life he had sort of been doing stuff like that. It probably was sort of relatively easy for him. And let's say that um, for me, like showing my soul, as it were, maybe the headwind portion of the journey was like years ago, and so now it's relatively easy for me because I sort of I just sort of altered the main structure of my existence in the kind of sense that well, I just I don't respect that kind of literature that Augustine, Petrarch, and Rousseau were doing, but unfortunately, I had to join that conga line. I don't know. Yeah, so unfortunately, now I'm stuck in that thing, and yeah, these are the last in line with that, and yeah, yeah. As I said, I'm not proud of it, but I feel like it. I feel like Gandhi, sorry, Mahatma Gandhi, the famous Indian politician, Gandhi said that we must be the change which we wish to see in the world. We must become the change which we wish to see in the world. That's the line. So anyway, like I just think that this, not to sound like Billy Joel, that honesty is such a lonely word. Everyone is so untrue. But I think there is too much that kind of calculating, two-faced presence in like both culture and then the high culture of art. That I feel like there should definitely be like a counter force for that kind of we live very much in a world of fair weather virtues. Like Henry Fielding said in Tom Jones that he spoke of these elderly ladies who were like trained bands, in that they were always the most willing to go on duty when there was the least sign of danger. So, like, they sort of trumpet their virtues when they didn't have to pay the price for them. You know, there are so many people, for instance, who in debates and conflict situations, they always take the easiest position, the positions where you don't have to pay a price, you don't have to pay an emotional price for your convictions. So, like a weathercock changes based on which way the wind is blowing. Those kinds of conformists, they're all around. They, turncoats who always change for the side where it's the easiest to exist in. Like, say what you will about the people like Rousseau and Petrarch and so on, but they were willing to just pick one side, to pay the price for both their deeds and their convictions. And like, we don't have lots of people like that. In our culture. I don't know. It's just, it's not difficult for me. Like, I don't. I've made this decision a really long time ago. I think a lot of it has to do with people chasing approval. So the people who are like the most fragile, let's say, they don't dare exist in a situation where they feel like they are alone against many others who are sort of besieging them in a hostile manner. Like, because they sort of crave acceptance because of their cowardice. I suppose it must be admitted. Like, what other reason could there be? What other reason could there be? Like, it's not being mean, it's just, what other reason could there be? Because they so crave acceptance, not just from significant others, but just any and every group of others. that's why they take that conformism, because you know uh, they want to be a body uh, in the world, and they don't want to be a soul. They don't want to be a significant soul, a soul that sort of keeps to their colors and doesn't run. You know, yeah. I just, you know, as I said, there, I think there's legitimate reasons to sort of dismiss that kind of Rousseauian uh, presence as coming from a place other than virtues, but I think that kind of these colors don't run mentality, I think it is sort of textbook virtuous behavior in the main. Like, there's a way to be unvirtuous under a a basically virtuous main banner, if you get what I'm talking about. Like with Rousseau, like you could say that he is merely an egoist. Like he might have one virtue, but then he sort of hides behind that main virtue, and he doesn't really take anyone else into consideration. Like if you read Bleak House by Charles Dickens, I always assumed that the character who goes around saying that he's merely a child, I always thought that that was Dickens's parody of Rousseau, or essentially like calling Rousseau out. And like if you look at it, look at situation from such a light, I think um, I think virtues, properly speaking, should always have as the main direction that, you know, some people are easy on themselves, like in a family. They are easy on themselves and they make life harder for others around. But like a mother might be hard on themselves but make life easier for others around. So anyway, like I think textbook virtuous behavior should always be that you make life harder for yourself to create ease for others. That's virtuous. And then wise always has to be when you make things easy for yourself and then push the difficulties to everyone around you. So like I'd keep that in mind and not sort of be distracted by the surfaces. All right. So just because someone's willing to share something of themselves doesn't mean that it's ipso facto necessarily virtuous. But like this is strange that I'm both sort of accusing Rousseau but also defending him because of that these colors don't lie and these colors don't run mentality. Um, you know, it's uh, well, life isn't so simple that there would be those kinds of black and white. Something is either wholly good or wholly bad. But you know, it um, just like uh, I'm not trying to put the show you body, show your soul as one is better than the other, or that if you're able to do both, then that would be better than somebody who isn't. I'm not, you know, those kinds of black and white, black and white stances. I'm not taking those. I'm simply putting the conversation out there that um, there is this general escape happening inside humanity, and some people um, some people shield their body, some people shield their soul, but it's just the question I'm asking is that what kind of interaction, how meaningful can interaction be between two people who shield their soul? Like Alicia Keys apparently made some sort of a anti-makeup manifesto that she's just refused to sort of hide herself behind makeup anymore, and that for the rest of her career she will just not use makeup. um, I think I think something like that, you'd have to uh, I mean, like, to use makeup or any other kind of physical distraction, it should be seen as a person not willing to show their body. So, like, you just see how it's basically our main culture has become us hiding our souls or us hiding our bodies. There's like there's pseudo cases of revealing your body, but if you reveal your body that's hiding behind makeup or something, if you're revealing your soul that's hiding behind subterfuges and so on, uh, yeah, I mean, I think there's something deeply problematic about the main line of our culture that is of that great escape variety. And, just the question I'm asking is that, I think if your gut reaction is that you never hide anything, if your gut reaction is that you never hide anything, then you certainly hide your soul. Because of that Rousseau thing, is that it's only when you're willing to be seen as in the wrong. Like Rousseau in his Confessions, he was willing to be seen as being in the wrong about something. He didn't just take the comfortable stance. That's showing your soul. Both, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's showing your soul. But if you never, because, like, what Aesop wrote called anti-hero smack. Lots of people who, like, if you look at, if you think of life as like a football field, and you think of certain virtues as like the goal, lots of people who can score on the goal will decide that virtues don't matter, and then they give in to vice, and then they sort of decide for themselves that they have now more goals all around and they can score on them. But because they've cheated on themselves, they're as if erased emotional gravity, and now that they can just decide that, if I move this across the screen, that's scoring. The ego can just make those kinds of pseudo achievements that it then congratulates itself for passing. But it's because you erase the emotional gravity. You need something to be definitively wrong to get the rewards of something being definitively right. You need both. If something isn't unequivocally seen as failing, nothing can be seen as unequivocally winning. So that it's only those people who have this everything or nothing stance that I won't choose that, or that. I will only choose that one thing there. And when you take the fight, you reject those other things. When you finally overcome, then you feel like you're scoring or winning. I think lots of people, because of the sort of innate fragility, uh, they are sort of kidding themselves about the status as winning. But, you know, um, because they don't make something a mountain for themselves, it won't feel like epic winning when you are standing there on top of the mountain. If everything's just flat, everything everything is ostensibly rendered easy, but everything is also rendered meaningless. So I think like, again, some people are hiding from themselves. They are in denial, and they think that they are making life easier for themselves by throwing away virtue ethics. But it's like, you just restructure your world, and you sort of restructured it, um, as to do away with both highs and lows. So, it's just worth considering whether that's a good decision. But anyway, like, I think it's the idea that you would be fine at all times to show both your body and your soul to strangers. I think it has to be recognized as bullshit. Like, you are a liar if you say that at all times, um, you are willing to display both your body and your soul, because you only need to think of something that you are deeply ashamed. Something that you're deeply ashamed, and then people with whom you are fragile, whose approval you want, would you tell to them what you are most ashamed of? And the answer is, with most people, probably not. So they wouldn't be okay displaying your body, or displaying their soul, that is. So, you know, this is just sort of talking in general about the change that I've wanted to make in my life, is that I want to stop running away from myself. That is, it's not easy for me necessarily uh, to show my soul, because of the emotional price that you have to pay. It's not easy. Just because I'm able to do it doesn't mean that I'm doing it as if merrily. I mean, I think doing a lot of these things, I sort of feel like I'm dying on the inside as I do it, but I sort of force myself to do it. But yeah, I just invite my viewers to ask themselves the question: which would you rather show to strangers, your body or your soul? And it's there's a Sade song called "Sweetest Taboo." She doesn't exactly mention what the taboo is that is the sweetest. Um, but I mean, um, because of certain things, I've gotten to the habit of liking thinking that the sweetest taboo would be when you love somebody else without anyone else knowing it. Like, if you don't think that that's a taboo, uh, yeah, you know, using the usually um, wait, so like if there's like a Hollywood type meet cute of a boy like bumping into a girl, uh, it's like a fair situation because um, both people have the same opportunities. There's not there's not a disbalance between them. But if there's two people being strangers, but one stranger has sort of went head over heels in love with the other, there's a disbalance. And so it's intensely awkward when like the boy is hopelessly in love and the girl is just sort of living in her life. So the boy will feel like a criminal for loving her because of the disbalance, because um, you know, um, because of the lack of reciprocity. Like love thrives in the reciprocity, but if you can't get reciprocation, if she won't madly love you back, then I would argue that what the boy is doing, it's a taboo. Like our culture feels really uncomfortable if there's like one person feeling deeply and another person hasn't basically um asked them to. Like it's as if it's a lawless type of love because of the lack of reciprocity. And anyway, it's definitely a taboo because, like, just think of yourself like standing in a bus stop and then talking to another person that you've went out of your way to love somebody who doesn't know you exist. And everyone else will give you kind of strange looks because it's a taboo. Like it's not, it's something that shouldn't be done, but you're doing it. That's what a taboo is. It's something that the community thinks that shouldn't be done, but you're doing it anyway. So anyway, like Rousseau in his book, he was breaking taboos left and right. Like that's uh, daring to show your soul when you dare to show yourself breaking taboos. And anyway, what I have been doing recently is that you know what I call the sweetest taboo after Sade is there's no distance I haven't crossed in the so if you think the beginning of the video of showing your soul feels showing your body feels going too far, no, no. So when you show your soul like that, when you say something that cannot ever be taken back, when you say something that will permanently alter how others see you, that's showing your soul, and that's going pretty far. So anyway, that's something I've been doing. So yeah. Sorry about the Matthew McConaughey stuff. I just felt like that scene was a good opportunity for me to take my clothes off. Or shirt off, that is. I still feel a bit out of shape because, I'm just a failed screenwriter. I'm not like a, you know, I'm not a professional athlete, so I'm very slowly only managing to turn the beat around into something a bit better. But you know, slowly but surely, I try to become uh, well, not exactly a matinee idol, because I don't think a lot of that type of stuff, but just closer to like a slightly more typical leading man of a romance. So anyway, it's you know, there's some stuff like this in the air in my world. So um, you know, now you know. So anyway, what about you? Which would you rather show, your body or your soul? Think about it. Thanks for watching.